Show me a single self-respecting man that would like to climb into bed with that woman, ever, who wasn't an incel.
It's so cringe. Oh, God.
Right, GB News announcing that they are suspending Dan Wooten following the earlier suspension of Laurence Fox for comments made.
Oh, yeah, Ava, I'm so sorry. Oh, I didn't want it to happen. He made me. Oh, it was all Laurence Fox. Please, he made me. I didn't do anything. Please tell them. Tell them I'm nice. Tell them I'm nice, Ava, please. I don't in any way think that's an excuse to go on the fucking news to talk about whether you want to fuck her or not.
We're past the watershed, so I can say this. Show me a single self-respecting man that would like to climb into bed with that woman, ever, who wasn't an incel, who wasn't a cucked little incel.
But by the way, this is the news. Right, GB News is supposed to be a serious news channel, and yet they're using words like cucked incel. Unless you're some kind of cucked incel. This isn't a YouTuber, okay? This isn't another streamer. I'd expect this shit from a right-wing streamer. That's what you expect from them. That's how they talk, right? This isn't a red pillar. This is a supposedly, at least he believes, serious journalist, right? Both of them are supposed to be serious journalists.
Ever. Who wasn't an incel, who wasn't a cucked little incel. That little woman has been fed, spoon-fed oppression day after day after day after day, starting with the lie of the gender wage gap. And she sat there and I'm going like, if I met you...
Has anyone noticed how these kind of misogynists cannot accept a woman could reach a conclusion on her own? So if they were talking to me, maybe I'm wrong, I don't go, oh, you've been spoon-fed liberalism, that's why you believe... Right, they would assume I believe what I believe, but when it's a woman, it's like, oh, darling, oh, who's put all this feminism in your head? Which man told you this? Because it's way more sexist than you think. You get these little subtle things that people say, and you're like, oh, shit. Okay, that's actually really fucked.
In a bar, and that was like sentence 3, chances of me just walking away are just huge. We need powerful, strong, amazing women who make great...
The chances...
points for themselves. We don't need these sort of feminist 4.0. They're pathetic and embarrassing. Who'd want to shag that?
Ava Evans.
Well, look, she...
Sorry.
So I just want to try and find a picture of Ava Evans, just so people can see. And again, I'm not trying to objectify it. In a video about hate, it's like sexism. I'm not trying like, oh my God, she's so fit, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, look, here you go. This geezer is saying he would be disgusted at the idea of being with her. This one, right? The one who's also a massive dick, who's not only, again, not a hideously ugly man, just not in the least bit attractive, with an even less attractive, with a very ugly personality. Look, that's the even better one. Yeah. But no, he's sickened by the thought of her, according to him, he claims. Has anyone noticed how these guys, sorry, just get the thing back up. But has anyone noticed how these guys, they'll often do this? It's bad enough when a woman says something and you get like either an attractive guy or a guy on a similar level of attractiveness who'll be like, oh, you ugly bitch, it's disgusting, it's wrong, it shouldn't happen, okay? But then you get these fucking freaks. These like, look at the pair of them. And again, they're not monsters. They're not monstrously ugly men. They're just not in the least bit attractive. And like, because a woman has said something, they're just like, ha, stupid. Oh, she's so disgusting. Right? And so obviously that's bad. It's obviously that's bad in the sense that it's just sexist. But it's also just an embarrassment. I'm sorry. Neither of these guys would have a chance with somebody that attractive. And I'm not trying to in the video about let's not be sexist, talk about it matters whether she's attractive. If she was ugly as fuck, it still wouldn't matter. I'm just saying it adds an extra level of ridiculousness to whatever these fucking lunatics are trying to say.
A touch of balance from her, because she did actually respond to this earlier today, saying that she regretted her comments, but she didn't apologise. Yes. So, so there you go.
Go and find-
And she's a very beautiful woman, Laurence. Very beautiful woman. There you go. Although
She's
I'm probably
very
not. I'm probably.
Okay. He admitted she was very beautiful. See, the thing is, I think they were in his ear going, Dan, you can't allow this. This is sexist. And he goes, she is a very beautiful. Like you're going to explain, well, we probably shouldn't make fun of. Probably shouldn't talk about how attractive she is. Blah blah blah. Okay, so now GB News first suspended Laurence
Happened
Fox
last night, and this action that GB News is taking.
Well, this was extremely offensive comments made while speaking on a GB News programme. Comments.
It could just because she's got a nose ring, but she looks like quite cool for the like nightly I suppose morning news. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking she's got a nose ring, so I suppose if you took that out, everything else like fits in. But just made it look a bit cool.
About a female journalist called Ava Evans, asking what self-respecting man would want to climb into bed with her.
It's so cringe. Oh God, it's almost worse when she reads it out. Right? It's like such a cringe thing to say. What kind of a man who's again on the fucking news? This was the news. This isn't Michael Knowles YouTube or some red pillar Andrew Tate. This is literally on the news. The man is going, oh, imagine climbing into her, unless you're a completely cocked incel, on the fucking news.
Some of the most polite comments that he made, the others I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing with us today. And the comments about Ava Evans said that it made her feel physically sick when she reflected on the exchange that took place on Tuesday night on GB News. Now, as you say, Laurence Fox, the actor, has since refused to apologise for the comment, saying that he stood by every word. And it comes after
check his IMDb.
the journalist Ava questioned the need for a men's minister to deal with men.
She's called Ava because I'm pretty sure she said Ava earlier. And it's
that he stood by every word. And it comes after the journalist Ava questioned the need for a men's minister to deal with mental health issues that men often experience, whilst taking part in a BBC discussion on Monday. Now, on Tuesday night on GB News' Dan Wooten men often need for a men's minister to deal with mental health issues that men often experience, whilst taking part in a BBC discussion on Monday. Now, on Tuesday night on GB News' Dan Wooten show, when asked about the comments, Laurence Fox then started going into this rant, questioning who would want to sleep with that female journalist. Now, as a result, GB News say that they have suspended Laurence Fox, and we've also had a statement too from the host of that programme, Dan Wooten. He's apologised for what he describes as a very unfortunate lapse in judgment. It's quite a lengthy statement, but I'll read some of that to you. He said, I want to reiterate my regret over last night's exchange with Laurence on GB News. Having looked at the footage, I can see how inappropriate my reaction to his totally unacceptable remarks appear to be, and I want to be clear that I was in no way amused by the comments. Now, just for context to what he is referring to, many on social media had criticised Dan.
So what he's talking about is this. Dan Wooten says, I want to reiterate. Remember, we've just seen him laughing along with him. I want to reiterate my over last night's exchange with Laurence on GB News. Having looked at the footage, I can see how inappropriate my reaction to his totally unacceptable remarks appears to be, and I want to be clear that I was in no way amused by the comments. I reacted as I did out of shock and surprise in an off-guard moment while working out how to respond by searching for tweets at Ava Santina had sent earlier the day while having them read them in my ear in the same time. However, I should have intervened immediately to challenge offensive and misogynistic remarks. I apologise unreservedly for what was a very unfortunate lapse in judgment on my part and under the intense pressure of a bizarre exchange. I should have done better. I am devastated that I let the team down. A supportive GBN family. We seek to tackle issue and not one in person, which I intend to stress tonight. Now, you may notice there's a community note, and that's because Laurence Fox released this. Honesty is the best policy. And he sent a text going, "Making you giggle is my weekly joy. Crying, laughing, crying, laughing, crying, laughing. Imagine them freaking out in the galaxy. So much fun. Kiss, kiss." Oh, Dan. So Dan Wooten attempted to throw his friend and colleague, Laurence Fox. Dan tries to throw Laurence under the bus. And Laurence goes, "Oh dear, no." So Laurence goes, "Well, if he's throwing me under the bus, I'm throwing him under the bus." Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear.
Wooten for seemingly smirking whilst Laurence Fox was making these comments. Now, in a statement, Dan Wooten continued, "I should have intervened immediately to challenge offensive and misogynistic remarks. I apologised unreservedly for what was a very unfortunate lapse in judgment on my part under the intense pressure of a bizarre exchange." Now, we've also heard from a spokesperson from Ofcom as well that has confirmed that they have received a large number of complaints about the comments made by Laurence Fox on that GB News programme.
I'm fucking surprised. I'm not surprised. Like, come on. Like, that was literally, right? Watch the clip. It was literally like what I would expect from some red pillars or something, right? Okay, let's have another look. What's this? Okay, so now Dan Wooten, of course, was suspended as well.
Hello, welcome back. Let's
dear.
Continue with that breaking news story that we just brought you before the break. GB News announcing that they are suspending Dan Wooten following the earlier suspension of Laurence Fox for comments made by Mr. Fox on Dan Wooten's programme yesterday evening. Misogynistic comments made about the journalist Ava Evans. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer is on the line for us now with more on this. So Katie, look, when we spoke earlier, we said this story was continuing to unfold, and this latest development, GB News suspending Dan Wooten.
Yeah, we had actually heard rumours from people working within GB News that actually Dan Wooten was inside the building and going through a crisis talks with management team. It does appear to be that that was the case, and we've had this statement now put out from GB News just through social media confirming that they have now taken the decision to suspend Dan Wooten. He, if you like, is actually one of their star turns, really, one of the most rated presenters that they have on the channel. So it is a big decision that they have made to take him off of his show. They've said that it follows the comments that he made on his programme with Laurence Fox last night, following their decision earlier today to formally suspend Mr. Fox, and we are conducting a full investigation. They're not the only ones, of course, conducting an investigation, as are now Ofcom, who've received a number of complaints after what was a deeply misogynistic media confirming that they have now taken the decision to suspend Dan Wooten. He, if you like, is actually one of their star turns, really, one of the most rated presenters that they have on the channel. So it is a big decision that they have made.
What does suspension mean, though? Because people think this is the problem, right? People always suspended, right? So someone could be awaiting trial for multiple rapes and they'll be suspended. So somebody could have made an off-color comment and they'll be back in 3 days and they're suspended. So this could mean he's done, his career over, or this could mean he'll be back in a few days. Who knows? I wish they'd be clearer.
Off of his show.
Like big suspended. He's soft suspended or hard suspended or whatever.
They've said that it follows the comments that he made on his programme with Laurence Fox last night, following their decision earlier today to formally suspend Mr. Fox, and we are conducting a full investigation. They're not the only ones, of course, conducting an investigation. As are now Ofcom, who've received a number of complaints after what was a deeply misogynistic rant that Laurence Fox had on the Dan Wooten show last night that went completely unchallenged.
It wasn't really just a deeply misogynistic rant. Let's be clear. It was literally making fun of Ava Evans by saying, "Oh, who want to fuck her? Disgusting." Without arguing against the points or doing anything like that, it's just could you imagine fucking her? And was like, "Oh, she had a head filled with all this feminism rubbish." Oh, look, Andrew Bridgen there in the background. I don't know what this picture's from.
Fox as well, if you like, taken to social media, throwing Wooten under the bus almost, really, by putting onto social media an interaction that he had with Wooten through direct messages, saying that, wasn't that a good show? Words to the effect of that, basically, and then both saying, it must have made people scream in the gallery, and both sounding like they were quite pleased with the job that they'd done with respect to the rant that he made. Very different, of course, to what Dan Wooten put out in his statement today, saying that he was very sorry and he regretted what went on.
They got quite a good photo of Dan Wooten for this, didn't they? Like, look at him. He kind of looks a bit scared in that photo.
At the moment, both men now have been suspended. You have to wonder, really, whether or not this might progress on to people actually ending up being sacked as a result of the comments that were made.
And of course, Katie, this comes not long after Dan Wooten was off the air for a number of weeks on GB News following allegations made against him. And as I understand it, his column in the Daily Mail is still suspended as well. It just sort of adds to the growing problems that GB News is facing for some of its on-air presenters.
GB News took the decision in that case not to, they made the statement that they weren't going to take Dan Wooten off air over what were allegations that were unproven in their mind. But he is no figure to controversy, as are many of the presenters that are on GB News.
They all are. GB News. So I think they wanted to be the British Fox News, but they've become more like a combination of a British version of Newsmax and some right-wing YouTube channel. Right, that's somewhere in between. They're basically like a slightly lower budget version of like the Daily Wire, effectively. Yeah, I mean it was, but I feel like this person's rambling. So that's it. We got the gist there. They were kind of rambling a bit. Unfortunately, that does sometimes have to happen on the news. They're like, we've got a better segment to film. Yeah, so I mean, I imagine politicians didn't like it. They probably were getting some complaints too about it or something. Or then Ava Evans has done, who is on Joe. She often does stuff with Joe, which is quite good. She's particularly part of it. I like Joe. It's like an online news alternate, I don't know, sort of kind of centre-left YouTube channel. Maybe they do other stuff, but that's where I watch them. So anyway, let's back on. Let's watch her. Let's see what she's got to say.
That was a good intro.
Thank you. It's very professional.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Enjoyed that.
Wider British media for that. Hello and welcome to the Politics Joe pubcast. I'm Ed Campbell and I'm here, as always, with Ava Santina.
That was a good intro.
Thank you. It's very professional.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Enjoyed that.
Wider British media for that. The audience will tell you that's not how it usually begins.
It's like Evans a maiden name or Santina a maiden name, and then she's gotten married. Because some people say Santina, social media is Santina. That's why at the beginning I was like Santina. All the news articles say Ava Evans, so it's really confusing.
I think this is we're about to do quite a strange episode. In that we usually talk about the news.
We're going to talk about GB News. That's just mental, isn't it?
That in itself is not mental. We do that quite a lot, but we're talking about the news, but the news is about you.
God, that's an awful, yeah.
Which actually has got to be a little bit weird as a journalist, right? Because think about it. You're used to reviewing the news, but news about others, right? Your job's to talk about the other people. You're never supposed to be the news, right? And then suddenly it's like, oh no, you're the news. You're the big news. And now you've got to talk about yourself. That has actually got to be like a weird feeling. I wonder if for a journalist it's almost more weird than for an ordinary person.
I think there's lots of things to consider in that as a journalist, you never want to be the thing people are talking about. And also as like a friend, I'm just want to say I'm pretty gutted about this. Like, I think this is like a pretty horrific thing that we found ourselves in. And yeah, I think it's good.
I was going to make a joke. I was going to say, is the friend in the room with us now?
as a
Which
friend.
is horrible.
Yeah, I was trying to be nice. And then, but anyway, yeah, how are you?
I've been a lot better, actually. I've been a lot better. The whole thing is making me feel quite itchy and gross. Maybe we should just put the clip in.
Yeah, for context, if you haven't seen this, this is on Dan Wooten Tonight on GB News last night. Laurence Fox and Dan Wooten had a conversation about Ava.
We're past the watershed, so I can say this. Show me a single self-respecting man that would like to climb into bed with that woman, ever. Ever.
Look at the pair of them. I'm sorry. These are not attractive men to be saying this kind of shit. No, they would matter. If they were both super sexy dudes, they're still conscious for speaking like this, right? You don't speak like this. But it's just made laughable by the fact that this is who's saying it. Like either way misogynistic, but also very laughable.
He wasn't an incel. He wasn't a cucked little incel. That little woman has been fed.
Cocked incel on the news again.
Spoon-fed oppression.
Remember, cocked
day
incel
after day after day after day, starting with the lie of the gender wage gap. And she sat there and I'm going like, if I met you in a bar and that was like sentence 3, chances of me just walking away are just huge.
She's devastated. How will she cope? I mean, look at her. Imagine just, finding a man like this who's also a right-wing kind of dick. Like, not just because of his views, but just because of also the general way he behaves. Like, you get people who are conservative, and then you get people who are dicks about it. And he's one of the people that's like a dick about it. No, I reckon she'd go for Dan Wooten staring at her like that from across the bar.
Need powerful, strong, amazing women who make great points for themselves. We don't need these sort of feminist 4.0. They're pathetic and embarrassing. Who'd want to shag that?
Oh, Laurence. Well, look, she.
Sorry.
I'm just gonna provide a touch of
See,
balance.
who'd want to shag that? It's also like, it's like old man in a pub sexism.
From her, because she did actually respond to this earlier today, saying that she regretted her comments, but she didn't apologise. Yes, so there you go. And she's a very beautiful woman, Laurence. Very beautiful woman.
So that was gross.
Yeah.
Basically, which is the least you can say about that.
I just feel I've been put into the middle of a furore and a story that I didn't ask to be put into. I mean, for a long time, that man has said some pretty despicable things about women. I mean, there's the comments about asking your fellow journalist what colour knickers she's wearing. Or there's another commentator, he put out a tweet being like, oh God, you wouldn't want to be her girlfriend or whatever. I just think it speaks to a kind of wider power dynamic that is sort of falling away now, but definitely used to be there in the last few.
There's often a thing you get with some guys where they'll never take a woman seriously. Like, sure, they might talk her up if she agrees with them or like supports whatever they're saying, but like if I come and argue with them, they might vehemently disagree, but at least treat me like I've got a point. Whereas if a woman does it, they're immediately dismissive, and then they'll go to all the other guys going, oh, see that stupid bitch? Can you imagine fucking her? Oh, disgusting, disgusting. Right? Oh, she's so ugly. Even if she's like unbelievably attractive, they'll be like, oh, she's so ugly, she's so ugly. Oh. And the idea of it is just that as a woman, you're never going to be taken seriously enough to like make a difference or be able to defeat them in an argument or win anything. If you debate them, you've lost already because you're a woman and they're just going to mock you. Right? Do you see what I mean? So that if you're a woman and you go against them, you can't be taken seriously.
Years, it's like an antiquated practice of not being able to properly challenge a woman on her words, and so just going for her
looks,
level of attractiveness.
Yeah,
or her shaggability.
So what they're saying, and what I think they think that everybody would think that what they were saying is, she has no value. She has zero value, because a woman only really has value to them if they're getting something out of her, like they find her attractive, something like this. And obviously I'm oversimplifying. I'm not saying like they literally don't have, they literally, but so I think that's actually what they're saying. They're trying to say, so the only thing that they value are by, they're like, you have no value because I don't want to fuck you, which is stupid when you put it like that. But it shows how they think about women. It's like they divide them into two categories, fuckable or not fuckable. And the fuckable ones are the ones that have value to them. So that even when a woman's very attractive, when they put her into the unfuckable category. They think it's going to like hurt her a lot because they're essentially saying, I think you have no value, without realising that they're also admitting to only valuing women for how fuckable they think they are.
The implication is that your worth is determined by how attractive you are to any man, rather than your professional conduct, your intelligence, your opinions.
But, you know, I get that. I think any woman who's on social media gets that all the time. Like, there's always someone who's shouting at you how ugly you are, or how, you know, large you are, or whatever. None of that bothers me at all. Like, if anything, we laugh about that sort of stuff upstairs all the time. Like, I will regularly read you out a pretty despicable comment and be like, oh, nice one, Barry. But this just being on a national television...
Because it's pathetic. I think, like, I get what she's saying, that when the people say that shit, it's like pathetic, right? Like, I'll wind people up. Like the other day, I got a load of Nazis going off at me and saying crazy anti-Semitism. It's funny, it's hilarious to me. Because I don't give a shit what some pussy on Twitter says, right? But I think if the news said it to me, people are like, whoa, okay.
Television program, and what I don't like about it was that the comments were said, the presenter laughed about it, there was an entire gallery of people watching it go out who did nothing in from the viewer's perspective to stop it. And then we've now come to find out today that that was actually pre-agreed with producers, that he was going to say that, that
Wait,
he was going...
I didn't know that. Is that true? I don't know how to verify that. But like...
to talk about my looks in the context of this discussion. And that he also then joked with the presenter after the segment about how funny it all was.
Yeah. So for context, that was Laurence Fox has tweeted a conversation he claims was with Dan Wooten of them both kind of laughing about the segment, which is because Dan Wooten has put out 2 apologies on Twitter. He's tried to get in contact with you multiple times.
He called me multiple times throughout the night last night, and obviously I don't know him, and I do know who gave him my number, and it was a woman, and I'm really disappointed in her. Sorry, I just am. I think that I should have been asked permission before that. I was getting calls up until 1 o'clock in the morning, voicemails, and then after that...
Well, he's probably shitting his pants. Like, oh, Ava, I'm so sorry. Oh, I didn't want it to happen. He made me. Oh, it was all Laurence Fox. Please, he made me. I didn't do anything. Please tell them I'm nice. Tell them I'm nice, Ava, please.
From Laurence Fox went out, proving that they'd both had a good old laugh about all of it before public opinion had showed itself on the situation. He then called again. I don't want to hear from him. This is actually nothing to do with me.
No.
This is a network problem. This is a presenter, guest, gallery, production issue that is nothing to do with me.
Yeah, this is also the thing when it's the news. When it's 2 streamers, you can message them like, look, please can we sort this out? This is getting real. You know, whereas when you're the news, it's like, I'm not speaking to you. Nah, I talk to my producer, talk to somebody else. Because you can't just get that personal relationship. Hi, sorry. I know I was talking about how you're gross and I won't want to fuck you on the news. But can you please just accept my call at 1 a.m. when I tell you I'm really, really sorry, and please forgive me, and please go on the news tomorrow and tell everyone that you totally forgive me and everything, please, because my career's on the line. Sounds like you fucked then, doesn't it?
I just so happen to be the person they're talking about.
Yeah.
But I'm not in the conversation. I wasn't present for it.
No.
I didn't ask. I wasn't given a comment, right to reply, anything. It's not to do with me. And that's what makes me feel most sick about it. I'm just a commodity in this story.
Yeah.
I'm just a vehicle for content. And that's the bit that makes me feel most sick.
Because I think you have very little agency in this entire thing. You weren't a willing participant of this discussion. The way you were described on GB News, I think the bar described you as a hard left commentator.
Yeah.
Which I would never describe you as. You'd never describe yourself as that. The whole thing was incredibly demeaning. And for Dan Wooten to claim he respects you...
To be moderately fair, most GB News viewers probably think I'm hard left. So that's much of a muchness. To GB News viewers, they probably are. My dad's a GB News viewer and he calls me a communist. So, yeah, I could totally see that. I could totally see that.
Obviously bollocks. He doesn't respect you. If he respected you, this segment would never have been approved.
My my person is not in that at all. It's a caricature.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have been made out to be this feminazi, feminazi hard left person, because the kind of ludicrous thing is it's all stemmed from a discussion you had on Politics Live about men's mental health. Should we have that clip? Or a bit of that?
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
But in the Times, this headline, Rishi Sunak urged to appoint Minister for Men, suggested by a Conservative MP. New role would champion issues such as reducing male suicide. Would that be something you'd be in favour?
If people don't know, this is one of the only right-wing comedians in the world. Supposedly this comedian. I've only ever seen him on news shows and stuff like this. I've not really watched his comedy. Nothing against him. Seems like a nice enough bloke, actually, which is probably why he does well. But he's always touted as like the one right-wing comedian who is actually funny. Apparently, I've not seen his stand-up because can't be bothered.
Well,
what's interesting about that is the hostility it sometimes faces whenever it comes up. I saw a programme where there was like a feminist academic and a Lib Dem MP, and they were so hostile to this idea. And I thought, if you flipped those things, i.e. that it's the biggest cause of death for men under 50 is suicide, men are less likely to go to the doctors, men are less likely to maintain friendships. If that was for women, we'd often look at, well, why is society making that happen? Whereas with men, the argument is often, why are they doing that to themselves? So
Yeah, it's true. There's been repeatedly, and I've seen it on Twitter, some real insensitivity to these problems. And people are like, ha, fuck men. And it's like, well, no. Personally, misogyny and sexism are like systemic. Second of all, obviously, as we've seen tonight, there's plenty of men engaging in interpersonal sexism. But I don't think some poor fella killing himself is responsible for something Dan Wooten does, or Laurence Fox. But this is a really serious issue, and people aren't taking it seriously enough because it's men. I think ironically, it's not just because of feminism and stuff like this. I think some of it's to do with patriarchy. It's like a man's, sad. He's got depression. Is dealing with really terrible mental health. It's like, oh come on, mate, pull yourself together. Stop bloody whining about it, right? And I think that's quite a very patriarchal kind of attitude to it. And what is some crybabies making a fuss, is he? You know what I mean? So yeah, I actually think I think it's a combination of the two. I think we know how bad society is to women, so a lot of people mistake, if women have things slightly worse than men, or somewhat significantly worse than men, they're being raped and all sorts. If women have stuff worse than men, then clearly men have no issues, which isn't how it works, right? It doesn't work like that. You can't go, well, there's racism, so all white people must have great lives. Oh, no. Doesn't make any sense.
Not like totally wedded to the idea, but the hostility towards the idea, I find it instructive.
Ava?
I think that it feeds into the culture a little bit, this Minister for Men argument. In my mind, I think there should be a Minister for Mental Health, which would be all-encompassing. I mean, you've got something like 7 million children waiting for prescriptions for mental health at the moment. It's a crisis that's endemic throughout the country, not specific to men. And I think, a lot of ministers kind of bandy this about to sort of, I'm sorry, but make an enemy out of women. I think, not you, and I don't think your book is.
I don't
Sunak,
accept that. I don't think it is to make an enemy.
Yeah, I don't accept that either. I'm sorry. These are problems that are specific to men. If I was like, yeah, listen, there's all kinds of prejudice. Imagine, because this is true. This is probably why I'm going to strongly disagree with it. Imagine if you were to say, why do we need a minister for women and a women inequalities minister, right? Look, there's all kinds of prejudice. Sexism's just one prejudice. Let's just have a minister whose job is end prejudice, right? There's racism, there's all sorts. We don't need a bloody minister for women, come on. Sorry, no, there are issues that just affect men, and yeah, we probably do. We probably do need to figure this out. So I think that's silly. I think she's wrong. I don't in any way think that's an excuse to go on the fucking news and talk about whether you want to fuck her or not.
If we looked at during COVID, men were literally more likely to die from COVID. And I don't really want to cast myself as a meninist or one of these guys from the manosphere, because that's not who I am. But I do find it interesting that sometimes the arguments tend to throw it back.
But who was doing all the work during COVID? A lot of the time, if you looked into people's households, it was the women who were taking on the laundry, the school care, all of that.
I'm not disputing any of that. What I'm saying that there are specific issues that men face that might warrant specific attention. I mean, literally, the biggest killer of men under 50 is suicide. That is an arresting statistic, and if that doesn't warrant specific attention, mental health is an umbrella issue.
I have to say that is also because women are unsuccessful. That is a lot of that feeds into that statistic.
But it feels like, it just doesn't feel like you've got any space for this idea that men might have unique challenges that face them. And the problem is, even as I'm saying this, in my mind, it's like I've got out the violin, and I don't want to be.
Read the book.
I don't want to be this guy, because that's part of the problem. Is because you're encouraged at one level is men need to talk about their problems more, and then the moment you do it, you're like, all right, but not quite so often and not quite so loud. So like you say, the book is.
Yeah, this is true. It is actually very important. There are issues specifically that affect men. I mean, the thing is as well, like any feminist worth their salt will tell you that patriarchy is also really bad for men and leads to loads of problems for men. So clearly, if we need to deal with patriarchy, we probably need to also think about the negative ways it impacts men. Imagine if we just remove, well, we haven't, but imagine if we removed all of the negative ways it affects women, but then men are still expected to completely suppress their emotions, to not be in touch with themselves, to like bully each other, to promote anger as the only reasonable expression of male emotion, but they're just not doing it in a sexist way anymore. Well, that's not good. Why is that good? That's bad. That's very bad. Okay, yes, the society is misogynistic, right, which gives advantage to men. But it doesn't mean there aren't specific problems that men face. Those are two separate things.
The book is more light-hearted than that, but it certainly, goes around these issues.
So Jeff Norcott, the comedian who you're having that discussion with, he says that he's appalled by this absolute.
Yeah, and also
crash.
just a bit of context to that. So what had happened was he was asked his opinion. It came from a book that he'd written. I hadn't read the book. I was just asked if I agree there should be a minister for men. My point was I think there should be a minister for mental health in light of the high suicide rate for men, in light of the equally high suicide rate for women. I made a point that women are less successful at suicide, which is true.
Because men choose more lethal ways of killing themselves.
I have heard this. I've not looked into it. I don't know how true that is. But because the argument is that basically men tend to jump from buildings, shoot themselves in the face, whereas women tend to slit their wrists or drink eat a load of pills. Which those are things that take hours to die. There's loads of time for somebody to find you. There's loads of time for you to have take a load of pills and go, oh no, I don't actually really want to die. Whereas you put a shotgun in your face and blow your brains out. You haven't got to. You're not going to 30 minutes later go, you know what? Oh, maybe I don't want it. I should call a doctor. Right.
And women hate women anyway. I don't want to go too deep into it, but that is a point of fact. And I also pointed to the 7 million children who are on or awaiting prescriptions for their mental health or trying to seek therapy. I was saying that there should be an all-encompassing role in government for this I would argue pandemic of mental health. The way that has been construed by Dan Wooten and Laurence Fox is that I'm sneering at male suicide, which I categorically am not doing. No. And if you'd like to look back on the catalogue of videos that we have made here on Joe, a lot of those are to do with male suicide and the issues and drug abuse. And, we've done it enough to, I've got enough behind me on my CV to say I was not sneering at male suicide. But that goes back to the caricature. They're basically making this character, young, blonde woman.
Yeah, see, the study here, I'm not going to go into it too much, but it is saying that they studied a lot of participants and it did show that actually there is a statistically significant difference between the rate of suicide attempts in men and women. So I think we need to be careful of just saying, oh, it's all just explained. Again, you're saying there are no problems affecting men, which primarily affect men, which I think is a bit silly. Which I don't think it's actually what you're saying. I think you're saying it's just mental health and that will deal with men. But I don't think anyone would take it going the other way. I don't think people would say, well, look, we're going to do something. Look, we're not going to focus on women. We're just going to worry about domestic abuse because men get domestic abuse too. So, at the end of the day, do we need to even really worry about it? We just need somebody to deal with domestic abuse. Do we need to even worry? Men can get raped, so do we even need to worry about it from a gender perspective? Of course we bloody do. Of course we do. Because the rates are very different, and it's important to understand it.
Hates men, sneers at male suicide, is hard left. Now let's this character, young, blonde woman. That goes back to the caricature. They're basically making this character, young, blonde woman, hates men, sneers at male suicide, is hard left. Now let's mock her for her appearance.
Yeah.
I don't exist in this. I'm
No.
a fabrication.
No, it's a representation of you rather than your actual self.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
I think there's a possibility that they would do that part to a guy too, but then they wouldn't talk about whether they were going to fuck him or not. So, yeah, still not really the same thing.
I think this whole episode is actually quite frightening. As in, I think it's you've been made into this caricature for the right, for probably some quite far right people.
Yeah.
You're now a villain to them.
Well,
I think it's incredibly irresponsible.
You're inciting anger out of your viewers.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that's fine. You're going to get the clicks out of it today. But then where does that leave me tomorrow? Where's the duty of care for that? You've put my name, my picture up on your national television program.
Yep.
Where does that leave me tomorrow? We know that people who sit at home and watch these things sometimes can't appreciate the context of trying to get clicks, and they're actually really angry about it. You've misrepresented me, and now where are you going to be if someone turns up at my house tomorrow?
Yeah, and it's actually and let's not forget, someone was recently convicted of
I think there's a point to be said that could happen in anything, but like I think that's true for if you misrepresent. That's an interesting point, because whilst anybody could say something that could make people angry and make people want to attack them, imagine if people are attacking you because someone's lying about what you've said. That kind of almost makes it that person's fault, right? Not like it's obviously the fault of the murderer, but they're partially responsible.
Due to threats they made to you and your family.
Yeah.
Wait, so this is I think people talk about the way people talk about things, and as if it's quite as if it doesn't actually have any resonance in real life. But someone was making credible threats to you and your family, and I think this could fan flames further. I think it's an incredibly stupid, irresponsible, harmful thing that GB News has done, and I don't see. It was also, I think it's complete and utter shit that GB News is going to apologise to you at some point today.
Well, isn't that crazy? They're crazy that they put out a statement saying we'll be first I wasn't even in the original statement.
Yep.
We'll contact the individual involved. I'm not involved in this. I'm nothing to do with this. Second statement they gave,
Well, to be moderately fair, that is kind of just a turn of speech. I mean, you could have said the individual who was the subject or whatever.
will be shortly in contact with Miss Evans. Sorry? By what mechanism?
Yeah. And
to put out a statement like that without even trying to make contact with me.
And also other presenters on the channel who are condemning it, they know this is what GB News is. GB News, regardless of the programme that you make, you could be the mild-mannered morning show host. You know full well you're lying, you're in bed with conspiracy theorists, misogynists, etc., who are making they're fucking around and finding out. This is the level of discourse that GB News is.
I've been contacted by a lot of people this morning, and one of them was a female exec who left, and she said it had gone round her group of female execs who used to work at GB News as this is the reason why we left. Now you've got other journalists, I'm not going to name anyone, but quite a few presenters and journalists have reached out to me, and producers, to condemn it. I don't see a way out of this apart from expunging Laurence Fox from the channel. And if they don't, I'm not trying to, do you know what, I don't want to frame it in the way that I'm giving them an ultimatum, because I'm not. But I do think it does raise questions for the government and raises questions for the Conservative Party, because I don't see how they should be comfortable with having Jacob Rees-Mogg, Lee Anderson, Esther McVeigh, sitting elected members of Parliament on that channel alongside someone who genuinely cannot see women apart from through the lens of, am I going to have sex with them or not?
Yep. And it's also not the first time that GB News has left a lot to be desired in maybe the most mild fucking terms possible. in its coverage. It's you platformed Mark Stein for however long. Platforms COVID denial.
It just, I'm sorry, it's like a conspiracy show. It's a right-wing conspiracy, absolute nonsense. And I'm sorry. Under it, again, television news in the UK is supposed to have to be impartial, right? By law. Otherwise, you can't call it news. So, but yet they got around that again by stuffing Ofcom with Tories, who won't do anything about GB News because it benefits the Conservative Party, or did. Now the Conservative Party is not right-wing enough for them, so it probably benefits other parties, if anything.
They had that bullshit when Esther McVeigh and Philip Davies were interviewing Jeremy Hunt.
Remember, of course, as well, several of the GB News presenters were recently defending Russell Brand, saying he's got to be innocent. There was it Bev Turner, whatever, Bev something, where she hadn't even read the article or watched the Dispatches programme or seen any of the stuff about what he'd done. She immediately reflexively came out and defended him, and basically is still defending.
This is going to be the latest in a litany of embarrassments and professional failures and journalistic failures that GB News is representing.
But it is a journalistic failure because, as Fox has now proven, he did tell the producer what he was going to say.
Yeah.
And that will say then goes to, on the scripts, those are overseen by an editor. There's a lot of people involved in this, and to sort of cry foul now and say, oh, I didn't know and it was an accident and the broadcast got away from me, which is what Wooten has claimed to me in a voicemail, that's wrong. It's
totally wrong.
It's just an outright, Fox has proved it's an outright lie. There was one thing else I wanted to say and I can't think what it was. Oh yeah. I just wanted to say that if they are more than welcome to debate what I said on Politics Live, they are more than welcome to play the clip and dissect it and challenge what I said in there. No problem at all. Love a debate. I am regularly asked to go and debate issues. But what I don't understand is how it then moves on to someone's body and it moves into that carnal sphere. That's the bit I don't understand.
Yeah, and it's just wildly inappropriate.
Yeah.
Imagine because
it's like two old men in a pub, right? It's kind of bad that those old men are doing it. It's not good that old men sit around being sexist. But again, it's the fucking news. It's the news. The news. Oh, yeah, you won't fuck her unless you were some cocked incel. What? What? Would you shout that?
Talking about anyone like that, regardless of the context.
No.
It's intended to be degrading and humiliating, which is vile.
Mm-hmm. We'll have a more cheerful episode for you next time.
Yeah, is there anything else you want to add about
No, I'm golden. Thanks for doing that, golden boy.
My pleasure. This is I've scooped the entire journalistic industry. This is the interview everyone wanted.
Yeah.
And you got it right here on Politics Show. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. We'll have a more normal episode next week where we can talk about hating nonsense and stuff.
Quite right.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, again, an absolute joke that GB News tries to call itself a news channel